That'll be the thumbnail. um, I think it would be too. I think I'd be getting a little ahead of myself if I said I was back into the routine of doing this. I'm definitely not, 'cause it's only the second day now that I'm back to it. But I did have a really nice walk, and I had that kind of familiar feeling of all the things I would want to talk about in this space, and that was really nice. I also like didn't have any. The only stimuli I had was the nature sounds, and it was just glorious. It was incredible. Um, so I'm really grateful for that. I feel very lucky to have that space. Um, I kind of want to just like go down a list of all the things that I was getting excited to talk about here and then see kind of where it goes. So there's one Black Mirror episode in particular that I wanted to talk about. It's the first one. So that was one thing. And honestly, now that I'm saying that, I don't even remember what the rest of it was. So I guess maybe I should just start with that. Well, I think before talking about that Black Mirror episode, um, oh, I was thinking about writing. That was the other thing. Writing was another big one. I was thinking of like, what is this going to be about? But yeah, writing was a big piece that came to mind, and I was just kind of thinking about myself. I mean, it does relate to Black Mirror. So Black Mirror is all about this commentary on technology, and I feel like, I mean, there are so many of us who work in technology. It's not like it's a small field, and it's also a huge part of all of our lives. So it's not unique or anything like that. But yeah, so I obviously, I think that writing now is different because we forget that writing pen to paper with words for so much of human time was not what writing was. And so now when we think of someone as a writer, I feel like they take on this identity or this character maybe that is different from, that is a trope that isn't necessarily accurate to what it means to be someone who's writing. We think of someone who is maybe more reclusive and kind of is always in their head and writing pen to paper. And that's true to some extent, maybe, but I think there's also a lot of different ways that the act of writing comes across. And so, as someone who talks a lot and likes to talk, I think part of the reason why I like to talk is because my brain is writing so much. So, it's like talking is a way of not doing the writing that my brain is doing. And when I'm not talking, I'm either writing something, I feel like, or sleeping. It's very hard for me to shut down and kind of rest. That is very difficult for me. And I think rather than viewing that as a negative, it has a lot of positives to it. But specifically, part of the thought about writing is I was in regards to technology, like writing code. So people write code, and is that person a writer? Or are they a coder? Or is that writing? People write programs, which is a little different. And is that an act of writing? Does that make that person a writer? What does it mean to be a writer? Is it always about writing a novel, writing a poem? And it does remind me of I think the last video I posted, or maybe the one that, yeah, the last video I had has a lot about vision and what it means to conceptualize vision and then realize it. And I think writing is a lot of seeing different paths and seeing different stories and being able to conceptualize them and then actualizing them into some sort of structure. Because, excuse me, like writing a film, someone who's writing a film doesn't need to write every moment of dialogue for them to have written the film. And also similarly, it's not necessarily like you go in and you just start writing every word of dialogue right off the bat. You're writing so many different parts of that script, like the setting, the act, the scene, the storyboard, and all these pieces. And so I've just been kind of like reflecting on what all of that means and why we feel this need to, or why it's such a huge part of the human experience is to write and to create. Because Otherwise, my brain is kind of trapped in this one storyline I have and this one plot that I can be a part of when I can imagine many. The whole concept of plurality and the pluriverse, which some people agree with or not, but plurality was a huge topic at the conference that I went to last year, and I loved that it was part of it because I think it's. I was talking about liberating structures the other day, which is not something that I'm like. I have a lot more to kind of unpack there, but just the idea that a concept is something that can create more space. And so this idea of plurality that we all have, that there's a million different ways that something could go. Um, it's it's an opener. It's an opening framework. I even just then saying that was there are like the idea of plurality is that there's a million different potential futures that we could all be a part of, contribute to. I want to end that sentence with something to close it because we want if then so much. And that is coding. That is so much of like coding and logic and programming is that if you create an if, where is the then? And sometimes you need to just say the opener without the then, because forcing a conclusion, forcing the then, forcing the logic inappropriately or without the amount of time, without the diligence, time to explore and elaborate it is unhealthy and potentially dangerous depending on what you're doing. If we create environments and systems where everyone has to have finality and can't allow the question to breathe, that can be really dangerous for systems. So I think there is a tie back for creative writing too. For myself, I think sometimes I will stop myself from generating what I want to generate or conceptualize because I don't know, because I haven't fully contained it in my mind of whatever the then is for myself. I haven't closed it. I don't know the ending. I don't know the ending, and I feel like, or I don't know where it's going, and I feel like in order to write it or start it, I have to know where it's going, and that's so defeatist. And also, if we collectively only endeavored into journeys that we completely knew from start to finish the arc of, we wouldn't go anywhere and do anything. So it's true for us as a whole and as a collective, and it's true for us individually, that endeavoring into something without knowing every piece and every part of the arc is the whole thing we're doing. And that's really beautiful. So back to Black Mirror. Actually, I think it does tie in very well. So the episode I'm thinking of is the first episode in the series. What's it called? The specific name evades me. It's like a candy company. The main character works for a candy company. Then this girl from her high school comes back and has some crazy technology that basically rewrites reality. And it has like a thumbprint necklace thing where she can command a truth in a reality that then writes itself into existence. So she becomes emperor of the universe, and she can basically make anything happen any way she wants because of what massive amount of computing power and code writing she has been able to master. So I think that really is actually exactly what I'm kind of saying is, without the ability to hold space for the without the ability to hold space for the if, without the then, we're trying to command the arc of our realities. as a way of preserving our own safety and preserving control, and then you kind of get this like need for everyone to be the master of their own destiny and the master of their own universe when none of us are the masters of our destinies or masters of any universe. And that ability to write and that ability to vision, I think is must for it to be fruitful must come from the willingness to kind of go out on a limb and not know where it ends up. And when we think about teaching the next generations how to steward, teaching future generations stewardship, I think that ability to hold space for open questions, for dot dot dots, for unknowns is really critical to not create the master of the universe effect that's demonstrated in that episode of Black Mirror. Yeah, I'm really excited about how those how everything kind of weaved together there. And I this is such an exciting artifact to have created, to be able to kind of go back to and tease through some of the ideas there. I also was kind of on my walk thinking about how, like, you know, how we teach these skills and abilities and stewardship into the future and what that like collective futuring looks like. And it kind of makes me emotional about how beautiful and important I think that is. How great. I cry way too much, but that's fine. So, yay.